I'm Helga from Helga's Pennsylvania Cooking. Today we're going to take on a dish that has, it's simple and delicious, but kind of has a mixed history in it. What am I talking about? The dish that says it's something but really isn't. City chicken. Almost every Polish neighborhood has city chicken. It was very popular actually around the turn of the century, going into the Great Depression. The theory always was that at some point, my preheated oven, was that at some point chicken actually became scarce or more difficult to come by during the Great Depression, hence using scraps of veal and pork to make up the skewers, making a mock drumstick, chicken drumstick, thus being city chicken. That never felt right to me because if anything from the family's histories that I've known from my grandparents and stuff going through the Depression, they were able to have chicken. So I had to go a little bit deeper into this. And it turns out my suspicion was correct. And you know, if you don't like the history behind the food, well, I'm probably the wrong person to watch. We'll get to the recipe, but I find this tremendously interesting on how we get to where we do with the dishes that survive even today. So I told you about making fake drumsticks with pork and veal, and that's what actually we'll be doing today. I'm using all pork. I don't have veal today, so I'm using all pork. And if you're going to be using pork, an easy way to do it is to get the boneless country ribs and just cut them into like 1-inch squares for your skewers. More on that in a bit. So prior to the 20s, chicken as meat was common in the country, but not in the city. Farmers would make more money selling eggs than whole chickens and usually saved the chicken meat for supper. They were restricted to selling any surplus chicken meat seasonally. And that's an interesting thing right there. But with the help of new technologies, farmers were able to expand their chicken operations. In a 1918 edition of the Fanny Farmer, she notes that since incubators have been so much used for hatching chickens, small birds suitable for broiling may be always found in the market. So this was a new seasonal convenience that was met with a relatively reasonable price. The 1914 copies of Household Discoveries and Mrs. Curtis's cookbook quotes the price at 20 cents a pound, comparable to tougher cuts of beef and wildly cheaper than filet mignon, which was 90 cents a pound. In the 20s, though, the trend of affordable, accessible chicken blasted forward with the advent of large-scale chicken farming, factory farming. Mrs. Wilmer Steele of Delaware is credited with opening the first factory chicken farm in 1923 with 500 broilers. She had such success that by 26, she housed 10,000 broilers. Sadly for her, after selling her successful business at a profit, she and her husband died in a freak yachting accident. It just goes to show the best laid plans don't always work out. So chicken was becoming cheap. People were experiencing a national financial crisis and needed cheap food. So why did pork and veal dish imitating chicken become popular? Well, you're making the mistake of looking at chicken prices. What we needed to do was look at what was happening to pork and beef prices. At the beginning of the Great Depression, farmers panicked. In their fear of going under, they increased the number of crops and herds. The need for meat did not increase. However, and this surplus caused such a decrease in value that the federal government introduced the 1933 Agricultural Adjustment Act in the hopes of creating scarcity. Now, when have we heard our government getting involved in things like this before? The initial method for increasing scarcity were for the government to buy crops and herds from farmers at a premium and plow them underground. In a country of people standing in bread lines to feed their family, getting word of viable food being plowed under was not received well. I can't imagine why. An estimated 6.4 million pigs were killed, causing public outcry. Now just think about this. People are starving, can't get food, and our government went out in order to create a fake market, killed all these animals unnecessarily that could have fed the whole country. In 1935, there was an amendment to the Act and the Federal Surplus Relief Corporation was founded. The federal government would now purchase the commodities from the farmers and distribute them to relief agencies so the food would go to impoverished families in need. These commodities were primarily wheat, milk, and pork, and then later rye, flax, sugar cane, and beef were added. And allegedly, the lion's share of the 6.4 million hogs that caused the public outcry to find their way to relief agencies. Is it truth? Who knows? I would certainly hope so. So during the Great Depression, it's not that chicken became so expensive. It's that pork and beef became so cheap. So it was actually cheaper than the chicken. So that part of the stories that we've always heard was that chicken was actually pricey at one point, and it was cheaper to get the other white meat, which was pork or veal, to make the fake chicken drumsticks. So that is your history, the real history on city chicken. And it's interesting to see how manipulated markets and stuff and affect our foodstuffs and what we end up eating. And even like during the pandemic, we all had to adjust in certain ways because of availability or lack thereof. So, oddly enough, my grandmother, my mother tells me, my mother's mother, made fabulous city chicken. But she passed away when I was young, and she wasn't ever big on sharing recipes with any of her kids. So my mother and my aunt didn't get those recipes. However, I found one a while ago that I think's pretty close to what my mother described. And I'm going to also share that there's a couple ways you can finish city chicken. Some people totally fry them, some people bake them, some people bake them in broth. We're going to fry first and then bake in broth. And that resonates with what my mom remembers her mom doing. And the baking in chicken broth helps keeps the meat nice and moist, where it can dry out and be tougher if you're only doing the fry method. So, city chicken, it's what we're making today, and let's get to it. The ingredients are pretty easy. I have oil in a pan about 1 inch deep that is preheating, and I have my oven at 325 preheating. I have about 8 skewers here. It's about 1.5 pounds. These are already skewered up. I get these at Irish Isle Provisions in Shamitown, aka Shamokin, and it saves some time. But if you don't have that availability to them already made up, just get wooden skewers, and I cut them in half, soak them, and then take boneless country ribs, pork ribs, and just cube them up and do it that way. If you can get decent veal to do the skewers with, that's great too, and alternating it makes it really yummy. 2 cups seasoned breadcrumbs, salt, pepper, half a cup of chicken broth, flour for dusting, and 3 tablespoons of water, which I will whisk with my 2 eggs. So I pepper and salted my my little drumsticks here. Coat it first in the flour, shake it off, coat in the egg, drain off, and then coat in the breadcrumbs. And I'll do the rest of these up here, and we will get them frying. So they should kind of look like this when we get ready to go fry them. So here's my plate of skewers all ready to go, and let's get frying. While those are frying, I'm going to get my 9 by 11 baking dish ready by pouring in my chicken broth. I just flip these over. You can see they have more color. We're going to get the other side colored up really well, browned up, and then transfer it into the 9x11 baking dish. And I'll do the other batch of 4, and then we can get ready to put it in the oven. So these are ready to transfer. Look at how beautiful that looks. Can you ever go wrong with meat on a stick? No, you can never go wrong with meat on a stick. See how nice those look? And then we're going to drop our other 4. And we'll get ready to bake them. So my city chicken is fried and coated and fried well. I put it in the pan with a half a cup of chicken broth. I'm now going to put aluminum foil over the top, and we're going to stick it in the oven at 325. There she is, ready to go. 325 for an hour. Now these are in for an hour at 325. After that, we take it out, uncover it, jack our oven temperature up to 350, and put it in for another 15 to 20 minutes. That's going to cook off the excess liquid and brown it back up. So our city chicken is done. Here's what it looks like. And the important thing I want you to notice is still crispy. So I'm going to take a piece off to try here. That's good. Still moist. Not dry. Still has the crunch. And like I said, how can you go wrong with meat on a stick? You just can't. So, city chicken. Here it is. And now you know the history behind it. Go ahead, give it a try. It's not an expensive dish, and I think it'll make you a nice supper. So, try it. City chicken.